Good evening. This is the Townsend Planning Board. The public hearing on Chapter 14536, Accessory Apartments in Residential Districts, is April 8th, 2019, and we are opening the public hearing at 6:45 p.m. I'd like the board members to introduce themselves.
Chad Sexton Duranian.
And Veronica Kell. There is a public sign-in sheet that should be back on the table, so if you haven't signed in yet, be sure that you do. I'm going to read the legal notice for this hearing. Townsend Planning Board legal notice. In accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5 and 11, and Zoning Bylaw, Article 12, Section 14569, the Townsend Planning Board will hold a public hearing April 8, 2019 at 6:45 p.m. in Memorial Hall, 272 Main Street. The purpose of the hearing is to solicit public comment on a petition to see if the town will vote to amend the town's zoning bylaw by adding an affordable accessory apartment program, reducing the allowable lot size, including detached structures, and changes to procedures and requirements of the application process, and review proposed amendments to the zoning bylaw as follows. Chapter 14536, Accessory Apartments in Residential District. Parties wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to these amendments may do so in writing prior to the hearing, or at the hearing in person or represented by an agent or attorney. Copies of this application are available for review in the offices of the town clerk and land use office during business hours. Respectfully submitted, Lance J. McNally, Chairman. And this was published in the Sentinel and Enterprise on March 18, 2019 and March 25, 2019. All right, I guess I'll start with reviewing the bylaw and the changes that we've made. So if you haven't picked one up in back, you can look at the screen where it's projected. What's nice about the screen version is it's color-coded. So you can see what has been put in, we all had our own colors. But anything that is in black is in the existing accessory apartment bylaw in residential districts. So we have added 3 definitions. Let me see if I can make this work. I can scroll it, I think, with the, sorry, technical difficulties. We're just getting this straightened out. Okay, under, that would be easier. Word use and definitions, we've added a definition for accessory apartment. And do I need to read this, or can I just go through it? The entire bylaw? No. Okay. All right, so we've added a definition to definition of accessory apartment, affordable accessory apartment. I think I'm going to go this way. Floor area, we did put a definition in there for that, and actually I think I'm going to read that one. Floor area, the sum of the finished area of above-grade floors or portions of floors in a single-family residence, excluding finished areas with ceiling heights less than 7 feet, and unfinished areas of attached or detached garages with access, doors, driveways for motor vehicles. As used in these bylaws, the term finished area shall mean the heated enclosed area within a single-family residence that is suitable for year-round use, embodying walls, floors, and ceilings that are similar to the rest of the area within the single-family residence. So floor area was not in the existing bylaw, but it has been added here. We've also added pre-existing outbuilding, which is a building detached from a single-family residence for example, a garage or barn that has been in existence for at least 10 years at the time of permit application, as evidenced by a deed from the Massachusetts Registry of Deeds or a building permit issued by the town of Townsend showing that the building was completed 10 years prior. So those are 4 definitions that we have added. All right, under the bylaw itself, under A, purpose, recognizing the need to provide alternative affordable housing for family members and affordable housing for the town, the following regulations are established for accessory apartments and affordable accessory apartments in a residential district. It is expressly understood that this section does not provide for 2-family or duplex type housing. And again, I will reiterate that anything in black is in the existing bylaw. So B is pretty much exactly what we have, but we are adding the ability to put an accessory apartment in an outbuilding, a pre-existing outbuilding. So this is exactly what is there. An owner or owners of a single-family dwelling or of a pre-existing outbuilding in an RA or RB district may apply to the Board of Appeals for a special permit for the construction and occupancy of an accessory dwelling unit, hereinafter accessory apartment, in such single-family dwelling or pre-existing outbuilding. In no case shall there be more than one accessory apartment established on a lot. So you can have an accessory apartment in the house or in a pre-existing outbuilding. And again, the definition of pre-existing outbuilding means it has to have been there for 10 years prior to putting that in. Sorry, let me go back. Let me see if I can get the arrows to do this. C is exactly what was there before. Nothing has changed. This just says, in accordance with the provisions of Article 11 of this bylaw, and after due consideration, the Board of Appeals may grant a special permit provided that, and here are the procedures. So if you look at this, these are new. In the green, we've added these. You think I need to read them? You want me to read these? Basically, I will. A, the applicant shall obtain and submit to the Board of Appeals a written report of the Board of Health certifying that the conditions of 14536D have been met. And D is a little bit further down. We're going to be looking at that. The Board of Appeals shall hold a public hearing on the application in accordance with the procedures specified in MGL Chapter 40A, and the Board of Appeals shall give due consideration to the mandatory referral report of the Planning Board, and where its decision differs from the recommendation of the Planning Board shall state the reasons, therefore, in writing. So for people that aren't familiar with the process, mandatory referrals, when an application comes in, get circulated to different boards in town. So this is requesting that the ZBA, who is the permit granting authority in this case, look at the planning board's mandatory referral. Requirements for an accessory apartment. This is 2 under Section C. So 1 is the procedures, 2 is the requirements for an accessory apartment. And in this, we added the pre-existing outbuilding. So if you look at AI, some of this is already existing. The accessory apartment in a single-family dwelling is accessory to the principal residence. The floor area of the apartment shall be the lesser of 800 square feet or 35% of the floor area of the principal residence and the apartment combined. The proposed change shall retain the appearance of a single-family structure. It shall be further required that the owner of the property shall occupy either the apartment or the principal residence as his or her primary residence, except for bona fide temporary absences. All right. II was added in its entirety. The accessory apartment in a pre-existing outbuilding shall not exceed 800 square feet, shall not cause the external appearance of the structure in which the accessory apartment is located to be significantly altered from the appearance of the existing structure, and shall not increase the footprint of the structure in which the accessory apartment is located. It shall be further required that the owner of the property shall occupy either the apartment or the principal residence as his or her primary residence, except for bona fide temporary absences. And then B, C, D, and E, for the most part, are exactly what is in the existing bylaw. Adequate provision has been made for the disposal of sewage, waste, and drainage of such accessory apartment in accordance with the requirements of the Board of Health. Adequate provision has been made for ingress and egress to the outside from such accessory apartment. The construction and occupancy of the accessory apartment will not be detrimental to the neighborhood in which the lot is located. And E, there is a change there. You can see it in blue. The lot on which the accessory apartment and principal residence are located contains at least 3/4 of an acre. So your lot must be at least 3/4 of an acre in order to do an accessory apartment in either the existing single-family structure or the outbuilding. Adequate provisions, this is F, adequate provisions have been made for off-street parking of motor vehicles in such a fashion as is consistent with the character of a single-family residence. G, there is no other apartment on the lot on which the accessory apartment is to be located. And H, any accessory apartment intended for occupancy by a person with a disability shall be subject to the provisions of MGL Chapter 48, Section 3. All right, so D, in order to ensure compliance with subsection C1A above, the applicant shall obtain and submit to the Board of Appeals prior to the hearing a written report of the Board of Health certifying that the conditions of subsection C2B have been met. I will tell you that the next sentence has been struck. The Board of Health may supplement its report within 5 days after the hearing. At the recommendation of Town Council, we will be striking that sentence because once the hearing is closed, no additional information can be added. So, E is the Affordable Accessory Apartment Program. Can I defer to you on this?
I was just going to say I can speak to this if you'd like.
All right. E is, as you can see, it's all in green. This is the section that specifies the affordable piece of this.
This is all in addition to what we currently have in our bylaw. This is actually directly from the Massachusetts general law. And we've also, because we don't believe in recreating the wheel, we have looked at other communities that have this same process and we're using the same verbiage that they did. And we also have, Town Council has gone over what we've written here and it's all been in compliance with Massachusetts state law. Basically, the intent of this section of the bylaw is to document the availability of low to moderately priced housing that qualifies for inclusion on the town's subsidized housing inventory, thus allowing for access to a variety of housing to meet the needs of low and moderate income families, town employees, and the young and the elderly. The Affordable Accessory Apartment Program is a public and private partnership to maintain local control over housing development and to increase the town's supply of low and moderate income housing. The Board of Appeals may approve a special permit for an affordable accessory apartment according to the same procedures as in subsection C1 above. An affordable accessory apartment shall meet the requirements set forth in subsection C2 above with the following conditions. The affordable accessory apartment shall be approved by LIP, which is defined in the definition portion of it. local initiative program is what that stands for, and it's basically a subset of what affordable housing is for the state. It's just a program that is set forward to put the procedures on taking an apartment and putting it into the housing inventory. Will comply with the requirements of this particular program, including but not limited to those contained within the comprehensive permit guidelines. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40B, comprehensive permit projects, subsidized housing inventory in effect on the date of application for a special permit, and as may be amended from time to time hereafter. Basically what that says is that we'll, if it is going to be an affordable apartment, you have to follow state regulations for that. And it was not in our bylaw before, but it needs to be in there just for clarity. B is before the affordable accessory apartment may be occupied, the owners of the property shall execute a regulatory agreement and declaration of restrictive covenants for affordable accessory apartment rental. It's called a regulatory agreement, and it's enforceable by the Department of Housing and Community Development in the town, or for a form of affordable housing restriction as may be in effect under the local initiative program. The regulatory agreement shall be recorded with the Middlesex South Registry of Deeds. Basically, it's a document that you sign that says that you are going to be following the rules and regulations of the local initiative program, and it's submitted to the town, and the town signs off on it. Would be the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen. So everybody is in agreement with that. The regulatory agreement that you enter into for an accessory apartment is for 15 years. It's a minimum term of 15 years. That's a state guideline, not a guideline for the town. The agreement shall terminate upon sale of the property, which for purposes of this subsection shall not include I, a mortgage deed or a secure repayment of a loan, II, an interspousal transfer for nominal consideration where the transferor retains at least a 50% ownership interest in the property, or III, a transfer to trust for minimum consideration where the owner holds at least 50% beneficial interest in the property. On 2, the owner may voluntarily terminate the regulatory agreement prior to its expiration within 60 days' notice in ordinance with the restrictions in such agreement. The owner shall notify the town and Department of Housing and Community Development and record a notice of cancellation of the special permit at the Registry of Deeds. The termination of the regulatory agreement shall not take effect until the expiration of the current lease between the owner and the tenant occupying the affordable accessory apartment. Upon termination of the agreement, additional restrictions shall apply regarding repayment to the town of any funds received from the town pursuant to a grant or loan agreement. Having an affordable apartment, you may enter into a loan agreement. There are certain loan agreements that allow you to update your property. If you are in the process of paying that off, you also have to address that in order to say that you're no longer in an affordable apartment. And an affordable accessory apartment may not be rented to an owner's family member. I can't read that, but currently defined in DHCD, whatever that says there, in guidelines, okay? As a grandparent, son, daughter, uncle, aunt, niece, nephew, or sibling. Meaning that if you have an affordable apartment that is on the inventory and you have a regulatory agreement, you cannot rent it to a family member at that point. You have to take it out of affordable housing, take it off the inventory, and then you can rent to a family member. You either can have it for a family member or affordable housing. You can't have both, is what that's saying. The affordable accessory apartment shall be subject to DHCD regulatory requirements, including requirements relative to pricing, tenant income eligibility, affirmative fair housing, marketing, and tenant selection, and maintenance. In particular, the affordable accessory apartment shall be rented to income-qualified tenants selected through an open process established in ordinance with the affirmative fair housing marketing plan, and the monthly rent shall not exceed the maximum affordable rent for a household of the appropriate size, as prescribed in the local initiative program, affordable accessory apartment guidelines, and other applicable state regulations and requirements. There's a whole explanation to that in regards to that. That is something that you would need to take up with the Housing Authority. They'll be able to help you with that. Any accessory apartment that you want to make affordable, you can always go to the Housing Authority and they'll be able to help you fill out the paperwork with that. You know, it sounds complicated, but it really isn't. And then you can go on to F from there.
Okay, so any owner, this is section F, any owner or owners of a single-family dwelling in RA and RAB and RB districts seeking a new or renewal of an accessory apartment permit. Sorry, should I start again? F, any owner or owners of a single-family dwelling in RA and RAB and RB districts seeking a new or renewal of an accessory apartment permit shall agree to abide by the terms of the State of Massachusetts, the HCD 40D program to ensure moderate income occupancy of the apartment, thus created for a period of 15 years. The local housing agency or partnership shall permit deferral of the program if the homeowner wishes to accommodate initially a family member or members. So what this is saying is, if you're creating the apartment for a family member, you can defer the affordable housing piece because it really doesn't apply. But if you are not housing a family member, then it needs to be in the affordable housing program. For the purpose of this section, family members shall be defined as one of the blood, step, or adopted relatives of the homeowner or spouse as follows: mother, father, sister, brother, son, daughter, uncle, aunt, grandmother, grandfather, and or their spouses. Should the family member vacate the accessory apartment, the agreement with the local housing agency or partnership shall be voided, providing the accessory apartment is discontinued and the dwelling reverts back to compliance with 14526A1. Otherwise, an application shall be made under the State of Mass 40B program. So you can choose not to have the apartment, to discontinue it, or you can put it under the State 40B program.
Correct.
Any apartment proposed hereunder shall comply with all applicable provisions of this Chapter 145-36. Fines may be imposed by the town for violation of this clause. In other words, if you're renting an apartment that is not being rented to a family member or part of the affordable housing program, you may be subject to fines. And then G, I believe that this section may not be necessary, but it is in there for now, so I'll leave it there. An accessory apartment is grandfathered with respect to 145-36-2C-2AI. This is the square footage requirement, provided the owner can provide evidence from the Massachusetts Registry of Deeds or the Town of Townsend Building Department that the special permit to create the accessory apartment was issued and the building of the accessory apartment was completed prior to the date of adoption of this amended bylaw. So because there are the minimum size requirement is different under the existing bylaw than this. I don't know what I did. Feedback. I probably got it too close to yours. All right, so that is the bylaw that we are proposing. Are there any comments from board members before we go on?
I'll add that I know that we had, there was a public forum that was held back in, I want to say November, but we did one in 2014. There was one that was held for the Townsend Housing Authority for their housing production plan. And at that time, a lot of information came out for this particular bylaw, and that's why the planning board adopted that we were going to go forward. There was a lot of input from the Housing Authority. We also talked with zoning as well. I wanted everybody to know that with the zoning board, the planning board, and the Housing Authority all worked together on this, so it wasn't just one organization that did it. And I just kind of want to throw in that working collaboratively, I think that was a great effort for the town, and I want to continue that we do work interboard like that, because it's important for us to be as collaborative as possible. Outside of that, there's a lot of, in regards to accessory apartments, the whole key here is for us to define exactly what we mean by an accessory apartment. An accessory apartment is indeed that. It's something that's an accessory to the main dwelling. That's why there's restrictions for the square footage. There's restrictions for the amount of land that it sits on, because we're not looking for a duplex. This is not a duplex. This is to be able to afford, and this is what came out of the public forum that we had. It was to retain people here in town and allow their children maybe to take the major portion of the house, but it also keeps the parent or the grandparent in town. And there are some tax breaks that on the affordable apartment portion of it, which when we get to the comments from the town departments and committees, one of them was the tax collector or the assessor's office, and they have explained exactly what that is, what that will raise for the town. But the main goal is to increase the affordable housing inventory for the town, and also to keep people here in town and not have them move away because they can't afford the house anymore.
Can we hold the question for just a bit? I just have to go through the mandatory referrals and one other thing, and then, so don't lose the question, because we definitely want questions. No, I didn't mean that. All right, so we did have are there any other comments from board members? All right, we did have three departments that returned mandatory referrals. The police department said that there were no safety concerns with this. The Townsend Housing Authority stated that they support the efforts of the planning board to expand the housing opportunities. Thank you for all your efforts. And the assessor's office said all accessory apartments may add tax revenue to the town. We did receive written correspondence from one concerned citizen. Should I read these comments? Okay, so, yeah, okay. So under B, so looking back at the bylaw, let me see if I can zip back here. It was under section B. The comment is, should this be an owner of a single-family dwelling or an owner of a single-family house with a pre-existing outbuilding in an RA or RB district? So I think that's to change the wording. Also, comment, what is the rationale for pre-existing? I'm not sure the intent. If I have an outbuilding, I can turn it into an apartment and then build another outbuilding if there is not anything to stop me from doing so. But if I never had an outbuilding, I will be penalized and not be able to have an apartment in an outbuilding. That doesn't seem to make much sense. Should I address these as I go, or should I just read them? I guess just for clarity here, if you don't have an outbuilding, you're not really penalized. It just means you can't. The intent is not for people to build apartments in their backyards. Mm-hmm. That's not the idea. So if you do not have an outbuilding, no, you cannot build an outbuilding for the purpose of making it an apartment. However, if you bought a house in town and then you put up a barn or a garage, and 10 years, because that's what we figured was reasonable time, 10 years from now you say, wow, it would be really great if our 20-something children could live there after they graduate from college, or if our mother-in-law could live there in an apartment. If you have a pre-existing outbuilding that's been standing for 10 years, yes, you can put an apartment in. So that's that comment. Okay, looking at section C2AI, so let me get there. C2AI, the comment is, I think the 800 is a little arbitrary. A house with a 24 by 36 footprint would not be able to have a basement apartment as it would be more than 800 square feet. I think it's like 864. There should be language that create a percent but not eliminate someone that just happens to have a larger footprint. We looked at the towns around the area. We also looked at when we picked the 800 square feet. I mean, if you have a 5,000 square foot house under the existing bylaw, you could have an apartment that's 2,600 square feet going by what we have right now. And that just seemed like we're not looking for people to add a house to a house. And so we looked at existing bylaws, specifically Groton and Lunenburg, I believe it was.
Well, we looked at Westford, we looked at Lincoln.
Yeah, we looked at
Sudbury, we looked at all different kinds of
towns around here that have accessory apartment bylaws, and 800 was what they chose. We also looked at Pine Ridge and, is it Country Estates?
Yes.
And at what the square footage was for a one-bedroom and a two-bedroom apartment. And if I remember this correctly without having my notes in front of me, a one-bedroom is 500, either 30 or 60 square feet for a one-bedroom apartment, and the average for a two-bedroom apartment in the two places is 780 square feet. So so the 800 that we saw in existing towns seems fair or adequate for accessory apartments. So that's why we chose that. As far as putting it in the basement, well, 800, if you have that, a 24 by 36 foot foundation, that's like 864 square feet. Well, there might be an entryway or that would be part of both of the house and the apartment. And so I think that could be worked around. For C2AII, the comment is, why can't it increase the footprint? Oh, this is on outbuildings. I could add a third stall to a two-stall garage, but would be prohibited from making that space an in-law accessory. That is correct. I am not sure the restrictive language helps with the intent. If I can enlarge for a car or make a bigger barn, I should be able to create a living space. Again, we're trying to keep the neighborhood as close as we can to being the type of neighborhood it is. We're not trying to build apartment buildings, I guess. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but so it would be to stay within the existing structure for an outbuilding. And then the last comment I have here before we take public comments is under E. It says, I think there needs to be clarity that you do not have to comply with this section, that it is voluntary. And I think the clarity comes in F. It's not voluntary. It is required that you comply with the affordable housing MGL if you are not accommodating family in the accessory apartment.
Correct.
So that is comments that came into us. So now the floor is open. Yes. Okay, could I share the mic?
Well, Beth was gonna. Beth, are you gonna have a microphone for the ed?
All right, so now we're open for questions. So I'll be happy to take questions. We'll be happy to answer questions from the audience.
Actually, I have two. One that came to mind was when you were talking about the tax burden, okay? The primary residence of the building is based on that burden, that tax burden is based on the square footage, et cetera, right? And now you're going to have an accessory apartment or a small outcrop building, or maybe a building that was already there, and after 10 years you decided to turn it into a livable space as opposed to parking your car, right?
Yes.
Does that have the exact same tax burden as the primary residence, or is it less? Because we're talking about keeping seniors in the town as opposed to being taxed out of the town because they can't afford on a fixed income to live here anymore.
The accessory apartment in that particular instance is taxed at a lower rate, yes.
So it's different?
Yes.
Okay, well then that's...
The primary residence is taxed at full tax. The accessory apartment is taxed at, I believe, 80%. So it would be 20%.
Well, that is
20 or 10?
That is better.
I think it's 20%.
Yeah, that is better.
It's taxed less,
Yeah,
yes.
that is better.
And that was part of the assessor's office, so that all accessory apartments may add tax revenue to the town, but also it is a reduced rate for the person who has the accessory apartment.
Now, if it's not a family member now, does that change? Because now they're getting income from that. Are they not?
Meaning, what's that?
Does the tax burden change? Does that 20?
If it's an affordable house, if it's under a low-income housing,
Yes.
it's the same. It will be the same. So the owner of the building itself will be taxed at a lower rate because the tenant will not be a family member. The tenant will only be paying the market, the affordable rate for that apartment.
Okay.
Because the owner of the building is opening it up for affordable housing, they get a tax break on that.
Right, okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Other questions about the affordable housing bylaw? For people that have just come in for the informational session, we are still in the affordable housing bylaw hearing. So just so you know, that's what we're talking about right now, and that's what's projected on the screen. So are there any other questions about any other input, either in support of the proposal or opposed to the proposal or questioning the proposal, the proposed bylaw updates?
I know it's very exciting, but...
No other questions? What about the board? Anything else from the board?
Do you have
Any other
anything at your
input?
end? So I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I hear a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. We appreciate the input. And come to town meeting so you can vote for our updated bylaw. All right, thank you. It is currently 7:23. The public information session will open at 7:30. So we have about, a 6-7 minute break. If anybody, needs to check in back, there might be some handouts back there. If not, I will be projecting as we go along. All right, welcome everybody. It's 7:30, and this is the adult use recreational marijuana ballot questions information session. I'm Veronica Cowell, the Townsend Planning Board, and we have... And we're here just to go through the ballot questions and what they are. So I have a brief PowerPoint. It's about 8 slides, and I will project at one point the questions. So I guess if you have questions while we're going through, it might be easiest to wait until the end to answer them, and I can always flip back through the slides if need be. That might be the easiest thing. So I guess the first thing is, what does your vote mean? And why is there a vote about this? So a little bit of background. I know that we had, about 2 years ago, we voted, in the state, in the November elections, there was a ballot question on whether we wanted recreational marijuana to be legal in the state. So, and Townsend voted yes. So as a town, we needed to look at a bylaw to, I don't know the right word, govern the use of recreational marijuana in our town. So we did have a moratorium for a year, and as you know, in December, we voted to extend that. And the reason for that was because we, the planning board, wanted the input from the town. Saying you want it to be legal in the state is one thing. Saying you want the establishment in your town is another thing. And so it means that the planning board doesn't make the decision as far as what types of recreational marijuana establishments are here in town, or where they are, or if they are. So in other words, it gives the voters in town the opportunity to think about what you want in the town. Because the moratorium extension may or may not be passed by the AG, we also put a bylaw in place in December, which was passed. So here we are, and we have ballot questions to find out what the town wants. We also have on the warrant bylaws that correspond to whatever the results of the ballot questions are. So I guess, Chaz and Geraldine, is there anything you want to add to that background?
The one thing that I did want to be very clear on is that the planning board did want the input from the town as to what exactly you wanted. These 7 questions are related to the seven different possibilities for having establishments within the town. That's number one, but we also have to have a vote at town meeting as well. So this ballot question is one, and then we have a town vote is number 2 in order for us to establish those particular laws. The bylaw that was passed back in December was in the event that the Attorney General didn't agree to our moratorium that we had asked for an extension on. To this date, we haven't heard anything from the Attorney General, so we're under the assumption that we still have the moratorium until June, I would say. But we haven't heard anything from the Attorney General.
All right, so that brings me right into what Chaz just said. There are 7 questions on the April 22nd ballot that ask about recreational marijuana establishments in Townsend. A yes vote to these questions prohibits the establishment type. You have to lift that thing up because when you angle it at me, we get feedback. A yes vote prohibits the establishment type. In other words, yes means no. And a no vote allows the establishment type as presently regulated, which means no means yes when you vote. So keep that in mind as we go through here. So first thing I want to do is there are 7 types of recreational marijuana establishments, and these are the 7 questions. There is 1 question for each type. And I'll after this slide, I'll pop up the ballot questions themselves. But just so you know, the types of recreational marijuana establishments are cultivators. You can be a recreational marijuana cultivator. You can be a product manufacturer. You can be a retailer, store. You can be a testing facility. There are also research facilities and distribution facilities. Those are 6 types of marijuana establishments, and the 7th one is a catch-all. These are other types of licensed recreational marijuana-related facilities not expressly defined in number 1 through 6 above. So this is the catch-all, the thing they haven't thought of yet. There are 6 that we know of for sure now, and question 7 is all of the other types that there might be, which currently there aren't, but there could be. So all of the questions are asked this way. Shall the town of Townsend adopt the following amendment to the zoning bylaws to prohibit recreational marijuana, fill in the blank from 1 through 7. Cultivator, yes or no? So because the question is asked, shall we vote to prohibit recreational marijuana cultivator? If you want to prohibit, you vote yes. This is the vote of yes means no. No cultivators in town. A vote of no, because the question is asked, do we want to prohibit it? If you say no, then it means yes for cultivators. Follow? Okay, so you have to give me a minute to pop up the bylaw here. Because if you picked up the handout, you can see that it's rather lengthy. All right, it's more than just the question I just read to you. So here you have question 1. This is what I just read. Shall the town of Townsend adopt the following amendment to prohibit recreational marijuana cultivators? Underneath that, there is a summary, and this pretty much goes over just what we're going over tonight. A yes vote will prohibit marijuana cultivators, and a no vote will allow recreational marijuana cultivators. And then, if you go down here, it gives you a summary. General laws, and I'm going to read this one, but I'm certainly not going to read all of them. General laws, Chapter 96G, Section 3, allows towns in the Commonwealth to approve bylaws prohibiting the operation of certain marijuana establishments. An affirmative vote would not prohibit medical marijuana establishments. So this is recreational only that we are voting on. Or other types of recreational marijuana establishments. Those are the others 2 through 7. All right? Or further, no ban or prohibition would be effective without town meeting's approval of the zoning bylaw copied below. And you can see down here at the bottom, text of bylaw. And this is what Chaz was talking about earlier. We need a ballot vote if you're going to prohibit, a ballot vote and a vote at town meeting for the bylaw. The above question, if voted in the affirmative, yes vote, would authorize town meeting to enact zoning bylaw amendments which would prohibit marijuana cultivators in Townsend, defined in Chapter 94G, Section 1, as entities licensed to cultivate, process, and package marijuana, to deliver marijuana to marijuana establishments, and to transfer marijuana to other marijuana establishments, but not to consumers. If voted in the negative vote, marijuana cultivators would be allowed in the town of Townsend, subject to existing regulations. So I will say once again, a yes vote means no, no cultivators. A no vote means yes, yes cultivators. All right, so the text of the bylaw is also in here. This would be Chapter 14589A of our zoning bylaws. Recreational marijuana cultivators as defined in MGL-C 94G 935 CMR 500 and Chapter 14590 of this bylaw shall be prohibited in all districts of the town of Townsend. So that is the bylaw that you would see at town meeting, and which we are having a public hearing on the 29th of April. That is on the bylaw. This is an informational session on how to answer the ballot questions based on your inclination. All right, so flipping this back up, the question is this. This is the question that you are voting yes or no on. This is the question. Shall the town of Townsend, this is question 1, adopt the following amendment of the zoning bylaw to prohibit recreational marijuana cultivated? So you can read the summary, and there is the bylaw. And it is either yes or no. Yes, prohibit, no, allow. All right, and, all of these questions are the same thing. If you read the summary, and if you didn't get a hard copy of the summary, these are all on the web page. You can read them on your own. You can read them when you come to vote or whenever. I am not going to read through all of these, but I am going to go back to my PowerPoint now. Closer to me, I'm sorry. All right, so going back to the PowerPoint here. So let me just zip through this real quick. So those are our 7 types of marijuana establishments. All of the questions look like this. Question number, shall the town of Townsend adopt the following amendment to the zoning bylaws to prohibit recreational marijuana testing facilities? Then there will be a summary, and then there's the text of the bylaw and what it will look like. You vote yes or no on all of these. So a yes vote, again, prohibits the establishment type. A no vote allows the establishment type. So, sorry, yes means no, no means yes. So prohibiting any type of marijuana establishment requires a ballot vote and a town meeting vote on the corresponding amendment. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So we will take questions now. And Beth has a microphone. If you're going to ask a question, she'll bring it to you, and we will answer as best we can.
Hey, how you doing, Marty?
I'm good. How are you, Ben?
The text in the summary, who drew that up, or is that just common?
Town council.
Town council.
I think it looks very similar in Lunenburg. Because they're doing a similar thing. Other towns in the area are doing similar types of. So that we know the will of the people. What do you want? What do you not want? Other questions? Yes.
Have to wait for the other guy to leave. We're not close. If I voted no, if the town votes no on any of those, meaning it's allowed,
Correct?
where might those facilities be?
That is in the current zoning bylaw. Do we have a map here with us? But we will at the bylaw hearing. They are in the industrial areas of town, so the industrial zones. And there are also, if you look at the bylaw that was adopted in December, there are also requirements as far as distances from facilities where children congregate, etc. I think it's worded a little differently from that in the actual bylaw. But
I think that's a good question too, and I'm going to see if we can post maybe a picture along with this so that with the existing bylaw exactly what areas we're talking about if it was allowed.
I know that Scales Lane area is one,
Yeah.
the area of the dump, and I think there's another one at the far end of town, I believe, or where the industrial zones are. So, does that answer the question? Other questions? Any other questions? We do have, yes. Is that on? Is that not working?
There it is.
There, yeah.
Okay. So I'm not sure if this is, actually very valid for here, but so if we, as a town, and we get a significant amount of tax revenue, where does that actually go to?
I expect that that would come to the town, and I'm not exactly sure that that's...
I mean, obviously there has to be somebody to monitor the facilities and that sort of thing.
That's correct. I think what needs to be cleared up, because some of the questions that I've been getting in emails from townspeople, each one of these is a separate entity in itself.
Right.
All right. We can vote for a cultivar, but we can say no to retail, for instance. So we won't have a retail establishment, but we will have a cultivar. If that is the case, then that will be taxed accordingly. All right. And the revenues to the town, from my understanding, and I'm not really clear on this, I did ask the state representative last time I spoke with her, and my understanding is as long as, there's no way for the state to say, whether or not we have to be excluded from benefits from marijuana in any part of with any other town. So they can't exclude us from any funds, from what I understand. So we're not going to be saying that we're not going to get any money because we're not allowing any of this. That's not the
Right, but
case.
has it been defined at all of what we would actually use those resources on?
No.
Like some roads or
And the
something?
last thing that actually I saw was there was expected revenue for the state of some crazy number like, $63 million, and they've only really had $5 million that has been raised with currently what's going on. So I don't think any of that's defined yet.
Okay.
I'm not so sure that it would be the planning board that would determine what would happen with those funds.
Okay.
So that might be a better question posed to the selectmen.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, to answer that question, if you look at the other towns that have allowed it, they enter an agreement with a cultivator or a retail establishment. So the Board of Selectmen have to sign a letter of intent and an agreement with them so they can set up basically what they tax would be on them. So the towns, like you saw, the first two that opened up, they raised $1 million in the first week. They get a chunk of that tax money. The money that goes to the state, to Chaz's point, has no definition. They haven't even gotten that far yet. Yeah, so the local agreement that we'd have with said facility, that's where we'd get immediate money from.
Other questions?
The only location for all of the questions are just on Scales Lane, dump area, and whatever place on the other end of town? Do those three locations apply to all 7 questions? Because you said that
Yes.
1 could go through or 5 could go through, but generally the only location that any of those could occupy would be those 3 locations?
The answer to that is yes.
Okay.
And I guess I can say that what we put forth for the bylaws at the time in December was kind of, we wanted to be able to find out, our main goal is to find out what the townspeople wanted. Once we do find out what the townspeople wanted, and if there are other areas that need to be involved, then the bylaws can be amended at that point. So we just need to find out what the town wants before we can actually go. But with the information that we were given up to December, when we had to have a bylaw in place, that's why that's why it was restrictive, if that answers your question.
Yes, Beth.
Hi. You're probably not going to be able to answer this, but I'd certainly like an answer at some point when this comes all together. Is cultivation going to be taxed differently than retail, i.e. agriculture versus retail?
From my understanding, and that's really nothing that the planning board would really want to do, this is from my information, is that it is not considered agriculture.
Okay.
It would not be considered agriculture. But again, that's not a planning issue.
Yeah, it's really not grown in a field. It's
Right.
not like we're going to have marijuana fields
Yeah.
in Townsend.
The question I have now would be, what type of security for the families and the people that live in this town, the town folk, have when, if any of these questions go through? Because now you've got a controlled substance that, I don't know, to me it's a lot easier for them to get a hold of that, for people to get a hold of it that shouldn't.
My answer to that is, should we be at the point when we have, all the bylaws in place that prohibit or allow whatever we're going to do, if there were an agreement with a company, that would be negotiated with the selectmen, and I would think at that point, things like security and all would be part of the agreement with the town.
So the police department is on board with this?
I think that it's not yet a reality, so I think that we need to vote and see where we are, and then go. The police department, okay, I don't want to overstep here, but the police department in and of themselves cannot say, no, it will not be in this town, or yes, it will be. That is a decision of the people, which is why we are doing what we're doing. The security, if there is something in Townsend, the security that takes place would be negotiated or set in place at that point. So it's premature right now to do it. I'm sure that people are thinking about things, but nothing is set in stone at this point on anything. So it's hard to answer that question.
Yeah,
That's the best answer I can give.
I just wanted to bring it out. I think it should at least wave the flag,
Yeah. Well, there has to be, if one of these does pass, let's say a research facility or whatever, they still have to enter into an agreement with the Board of Selectmen for the specifics of their particular facility. And that would include, I would assume, public safety and, there are strict guidelines according to the Cannabis Control Commission as well, that if you are one of these types of establishments, you have to have these particular policies, and a lot of it is under tight security. There are certain regulations that they have to follow as well in order to get their license.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Who will oversee or regulate this programs? I mean, if it's passed?
Again, this is the planning board is setting the bylaw and the setting up for the ballot question to allow the town to vote whatever they want to. As far as those types of questions, that's something that would be in agreement with the Board of Selectmen would be dealing with.
Just going back to the security part of it, we already have such a small police department as it is. and we can't hire enough qualified police officers in our small town, now we're going to have to find additional police officers to secure this potential facility?
I think I
I just
will
find that a big issue.
defer that, the response to that to our selectman, who's present.
Hi. The agreement, let's say one of them passes, 1 out of the 7 pass, and somebody comes in and puts in an application, and they want to put that kind of a facility in the right place and the right time. They have to come to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen negotiates an agreement with them. And what we've seen happen in other communities is you will have to give us X number of dollars to pay for X number more policemen, okay? And they will comply with that. So it shouldn't end up being a burden for us, is the point, because we have the ability to negotiate that. So if we honestly think, you know what, you need another traffic light where you are to let traffic in and out of this place, then we would have them pay for it. And those are just thoughts off the top. Those are the easily thought of ones. May I?
Yes.
Does that come as part of a permit process?
I mean, they're going to apply for a permit. That's when the negotiations start, okay? And we can be pretty tough negotiators.
I think that the first thing is the ballot questions and the town meeting vote to see what we have. You know, what the town's will is. And then we go from there.
Well, that's all well and good if, the selectmen negotiate, say, X amount of dollars for police officers, but as we all know, we have certain members of town government that aren't too friendly with the police officers that we have. So how are we going to draw in more officers when, like I said, we have certain town management that don't, respect or appreciate our current officers?
I think that, for me, the best answer to that question is that when we get to the point that we need that, we would need to address the situation at that point. And that if we did not have the security in town to allow whatever the facility is, I can't imagine that the facility would go in until that was in place. So I understand your concern, but I think that that's something that we deal with when and if we are at that point of looking at it.
Where we're at in the process is that if that is one of your concerns, then that should be what constitutes your vote, either for or against. Those are the kinds of things that we have to weigh as townspeople as to what we want in our town.
What are the benefits? So loud there. What are the benefits of having such a facility in town?
I believe that is beyond the scope of this informational session. It really, we're not here to say, here are the benefits or here are the detrimental things to having any recreational facility one way or the other. I mean, I think that's an individual decision that each person who comes to vote, both at the ballot and at town meeting, and I would urge you to do both, has to weigh for themselves.
And I'll add to that if you look on the Cannabis Control Commission website, they have a separate section that talks about these 7 different types of facilities, They do list a pros and cons of each one.
That's a good point. So maybe we can get that website up on the planning board for the town, get that website up there so
To
that
get a
people
link
can
to
look
it?
at that. Yeah, for the link.
See, the main goal, again, and I'm going to say it again, is that we, the planning board, wanted to make sure that the citizens of this town made the decision on whether or not you wanted it. We didn't want to write a bylaw that did not have the input of the town. This is your chance with the ballot to say what you want in this town. You know, the more information that you can gather in regards to what you want, I say all for it. There's a lot of information on the state, on MassGov, that has a lot of information in regards to this, the Cannabis Control Commission. I also urge you to look at other websites in other states who have also been going with a lot of new legislature that's been going on. I'll say Arizona is one of them, Colorado is another, that we've looked at. A lot of the information that the planning board has been looking over the past 2 years has been, you know, what has other people have been doing with it, what is the benefit for us, and what, you know, to leave the decision up to the townspeople. That's kind of where our decision making has put us.
Other questions? Yes, over here.
Should there be another ballot question asking for the establishment of a committee to govern it? Or kind of, we have like a committee for recycling and things like that? Shouldn't there be one for the marijuana stuff as well?
Well, that's an interesting thought. Let's wait and see what we, because the state kind of dictates what you do.
Okay.
But, you know, I think that's something that might be worth thinking about further down the road after we get through the ballot questions and the, you know, and the bylaws and, you know, see what we have there and actually, you know, that's it. I'll stop there. That's a TBD.
Just, if we vote on this and we, you know, approve that it comes to town, is there, I don't know if it's for the planning board or if it's the selectmen, you know, if the company is willing to give us X amount of dollars to hire officers, and can we put in there that we require X amount of officers, and if we don't have enough, then, you know, the facility can't go in because we don't have enough security?
That would be part of the negotiation, so.
Right.
And it would be the selectmen that negotiate that, so, Wayne.
Yeah, quick answer to that is I'm aware of all this stuff, and it's a little different. So if you look at the different towns, like the one in Barry, is that the one that had all the traffic? Which one? I can't remember which one.
Leicester.
So, you know, that's something they didn't anticipate when they entered into the contract, so the town forced them to hire private detail to deal with it. So that'd be something we'd end up doing too, but it would end up being wherever we, you know, whatever agreement we put in place. The state requirements for all 7 pieces are pretty strict. And having seen facilities at other states too, outside of a retail establishment, you barely would even know what was there. So there's some protection that because they want to protect themselves too. So there's a lot of stuff that goes in the background that we would have to consider. And that's where legal counsel comes in to help us draw up the agreements.
Do you have a question?
To walk through a door, to walk out the door. I was just saying that there's a lot of security in those establishments in other states to protect themselves as well.
Correct.
Okay, my question is, what happens if we vote to prohibit any establishment? Will the state have any comment about that, since as a town we did vote that we did want retail marijuana allowed in the state?
Because we voted that recreational marijuana could be allowed in the state, in order to prohibit it completely, we would need a yes vote to all 7 of the questions, and we would need a town meeting vote,
2/3.
2/3, to prohibit with the bylaw, to turn the bylaw down. So that's where, and then we could, that is allowed. If the town prohibits both at the ballot box and at the town meeting with the bylaw, then yes, that would prohibit it 100% in town.
Hi, okay. I thought the most informative thing that I got here tonight so far is the information that you just gave us to go to Cannabis Control, was it?
Commission.
Yeah, Commission. And I guess my question is, that is our responsibility, since I really enjoy it, or I really appreciate it when the state gives us the pros and cons, for the ballot questions that come up. And is there any other place, and I know you said to go to other states, like Colorado, that have already legalized it. Is there any other resource that you can give us, any more information for us to go as responsible, voters, to make our own decisions and alleviate any of these concerns that you can't address here tonight?
There has been a lot of municipalities here in the state that are going through the same thing that we are.
Yep.
And we're basing a lot of what the planning board has been doing on best practices, I guess is the best way to put it. If you know of a town, we all hear, oh, they're having a retail establishment in so-and-so town. Look on their town website and see what they have. With the agreements that they have, I don't really know if that's public knowledge or not, but once, a town or municipality has voted either for or against one of these types of establishments, there are strict guidelines in that. There's a negotiation that they have to do with the town officials to make sure that all these areas are taking place. So that is your safety net as far as, the security, the parking, and all of that kind of stuff. The most information, is really kind of looking on your own, because that's what we did. We've looked at a lot of the municipalities that have about the same population that we have. The zoning regulations that we have that are close to, and we're really pretty much, I think, on par with what those other communities have put in there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I guess what I would go back to is just this. A yes vote means no. It prohibits the establishment type. A no vote means yes. It allows the establishment type. And it's all in how the questions were written. But there you have it. And remember that you need the ballot vote and the town meeting vote on the corresponding amendment. April 22nd, Monday, it's a Monday. Monday, April 22nd is the town vote. So get out and vote. And town meeting is, I believe it's a Tuesday, May 7th. So those are the two. We do have, I should have made a slide, on April 29th, we are going to have a public hearing on the bylaw questions, the bylaw text for each of these. So this was just informational so that you would know yes means no and no means yes.
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Oh, is there another question?
The public hearing is televised?
The public hearing, is that televised?
On the 29th?
On the 29th? Yes, it is, and I believe town council will be here for that.
Yeah, the 29th will be televised, and town council will be here to answer questions as well.
So, did I see one more question?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I would expect so, yes, because it's when the ballot, when the results of the election come out, the results of the ballot questions should also be announced.
If the ballot votes go through, okay, and...
I don't know what goes through means.
I'm sorry, let me correct it. If there is a no vote on all the ballots...
So that's a yes for everything.
Correct. And there's going to be both votes anyway with the town hall and the ballots. But if there is a no vote for all the ballots, and then the town hall vote is a no, then where do we go?
I've been waiting for this question.
Yes.
We can talk to town council on the 29th about that, because I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen. But I'm sure town council would be able to answer that question when we have the public hearing.
Said enough. Thank you.
Did you have another question? No. It was the same thing? Okay. All right, so any others?
That or not?
A town meeting mock? I don't know what that is.
Yes.
Let me just...
Well, we'll defer to the selectmen here.
This is scheduling, so we can talk in front of each other. That's been set for the 24th, and it's a mock town meeting, and basically that's the moderator and Mr. Kreidler are going to be just going through all of the articles and the budget and answering any questions that people have, just to prepare for a town meeting. And it's strictly informational. Okay, but we're not going to get into like debating these kinds of things. For this, it'll probably just be, here's the list. Okay? That's the 24th.
So I have a question about that. Does that mean the budget will be available for us to look at online?
Yeah, actually, you could probably get a copy now of what it is now.
That's good to know.
Okay.
Thank you. So add that date to your calendar, the 24th, for a mock town meeting. All right.
So I make a motion that we adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much for coming out and for all the questions. We appreciate it.
Yeah, this put up to be on the ballot for exactly as is, but I can give you the PowerPoint that she did. Essentially, that is the correct way.
Yeah.